I remember I did a video, and my video, it got love and it also got a little bit of backlash when I realized that the Minister of Home Affairs, the DA Minister, and Mr. Leon, he spent like 52 million trying to deport 19,000 foreigners. I was speaking about that money. It was misuse of the government funds. That money could have been used for something else, building a border, or maybe creating a system that can integrate everyone, these people, when they come here, they can be easily identified. They can invest in building a system like that with that money, or build a border. And accordingly, I'm not the only one who has been complaining about that. Even Vuyo Zungula, the leader, the president of the ATM, Vuyo Zungula, he shares the same sentiment. He believes that that money was misused. It was misusing of funds, because without a border, there's nothing that's going to happen. But I want you to listen to him and understand him properly, basically.
You say this is a waste of resources. Why?
Look, if the system that allows people who come to the country illegally to continue, it means we are going to keep on spending money because we've not addressed the entry or exit parts of our country. So our view as the ATM is that there needs to be, the government needs to focus on dealing with corruption amongst the Home Affairs officials that are stationed by the borders, and needs to build capacity for a track and trace system, so that if a person comes in the country, there's a system that determines whether this person is here illegally, how long they are allowed to stay here, so that they are able to be, to be taken and to be deported if they overstay their welcome. You will recall that there's a guy from Japan. He spent 17 years in our country, not traced, simply because he was running away from Japan because he committed a crime there in Japan. But how could a person who was a fugitive of justice in Japan is able to stay for 17 years in our country without our systems in our country to track whether this person, number one, is in the country, what is the conditions of his stay here? And also we've got places whereby there's basically no borders. A person can easily jump. So without addressing those things, we are going to continue spending so much money. And again, there needs to be conversation with the Department of International Relations with these countries, because if you are going to have millions and millions of people coming from same countries coming to South Africa, the countries must take responsibility. It can't be that South Africa alone is going to spend so much money, but those countries are not going to be held accountable.
So you are taking it back to the conversation around the fence, the border fence as well, because at some point we were sitting with a fence that cost the country millions, and even some of the MPs going to inspect it and simply not being happy with what they found. Definitely.
There needs to be a proper border system, just like a person has in their own home, whereby there's a proper gate, there's a proper fence, so that a person can know if a person comes inside, these are the proper channels for a person to come inside the country. So we're saying similarly, the same thing must happen in our country, because if you have a case whereby there is illegal immigration that is not controlled, you are going to have instances whereby people end up taking the law into their own hands, because we are going to have cases whereby people commit murder, people commit crimes coming from other countries. They can easily skip the country, they can easily move from one area to another, and the people who are victims will never get justice.
But those who are, pardon me for coming in there, but those who are defending the minister are saying that what did you expect him to do? Because ultimately, if he finds people in the country illegally, he is doing something about this and sending them back. So what would you have rather had him do? Keep these people in the country?
No. We're not saying they must be kept in the country. We're saying that over and above. So it would have been understandable for the minister to say, this is the amount we've spent and the amount of people that we've deported, over and above dealing with the issue of illegal immigration.
Should the amount have been at 52 million though? It's
roughly 3,000 per person, which is quite not really an excessive amount if you look at how much travel costs are in the country.
But one would argue then that if we are going to be spending this much money just on traveling alone, and we are seeing austerity measures, and you are saying that there needs to be other systems that are being put in place, what's the feasibility of that in this current financial year, given at the fact that right now you're seeing a government that is strapped when it comes to cash in some instances?
They need to make a plan. Just like when there was a crisis of COVID, a plan was made, because people need to understand how expensive illegal immigration is. You find that students, they can't, parents can't take their kids to school because some schools are overwhelmed by illegal foreigners. Similarly, if you go to the health system, there's been complaints, especially in Gauteng and Limpopo, with the MECs of health there, about how the health system is actually burdened. So if the illegal immigration is not addressed, it will become much more expensive than the 52 million that is spent now. That is why instead of just spending the money on deportations, let us work on a system that will deal with the root problem, the root causes of the problem, so that there is effective solutions to the problem of illegal immigration. Not have a case whereby, because some of them, come December, they turn themselves to the Home Affairs to be deported. They come back again in January, which is, they're making a mockery of our country. So that is why the system must be effective to deal with such instances.
Venezuela, right? That's the leader of the ATM political party, forming a progressive caucus together with the MK party, the EFF, and other political parties that are progressive to the black agenda, to the people of South Africans agenda. So according to him, you heard him, he's saying that he's not advocating. Don't get mistaken, because this guy, he doesn't advocate for illegal immigration. He doesn't want illegal immigration. Like anybody else, nobody wants illegal immigration. But we must solve the problem of illegal immigration. There's a point in this clip he was talking about. How about there's a system that is created for these people to come to the country. When they come here, they can be easily detected who they are and how long they've been in the country. You know what that means? That means we must document everyone. That's what he's clearly trying to say. When he says there must be a system, people must be documented so they can be easily identifiable, so they can be easily known how long they've been in the country, where have they been going, where have they been using their energy, their money at. That's going to help solve a lot of problems. There's a clip, there's a part where he spoke about the border. He was asked the question, the border, and he made reference to the fact that South Africa doesn't have a border. And without a border, this thing of deporting foreigners will just be an expenditure. In the long run, the government will end up losing money for nothing. Losing money for nothing because there's no borders. You deport these people, they go back home. Some of them, the government might think they're deporting them forcefully, but some of them just want to go to the government, the police, so they can be deported for cheap transportation outside the country so they can go back to their home countries. It's cheaper for them to hand themselves into the government so the government can deport them. They don't have to spend money going to buses or for transport. They hand themselves to the government deport them. Then the next thing, after 1 month, when they're done doing whatever they're doing in the country, they come back through the bushes, through the rivers, because there's no fence, there's no border. So a border must also be something we talk about, must be a conversation worth having. And usually these organizations that advocate for chasing foreigners, they should be the ones who are advocating for this. Because if it's them saying this, it's gonna be much appreciative, and it's gonna create education for the people of South Africa to also understand that, look, man, all of these issues is because there's no borders. And their leaders of Operation Tutula, their leaders of Mr. Katie McKenzie, if they can vocalize the building of the border, it will create education for everyone, to start being interested, because that's where we are going to start solving this. Without a border, there's nothing that's going to be solved with this illegal immigration thing. Corruption is there, corruption will never go away, so they will always bribe people to get into the country. But with the border, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be protected. It's not like people can go over the fence and just jump. Everyone must enter through the border, and it's a given. But without a border, like people can just anywhere, you see. But it is what it is. I wanted you guys to witness that. In the meantime, thank you very much.